Namaste ji, namaste. Welcome to Courtroom by TLOI. Today we are going to be discussing about the proposed changes in CLAT by the expert committee that was constituted recently. It submitted a report way back in Feb, but now it's been recently released. And in May, I had this suspicion that the current affairs section was going to go away because when the committee is formed with one sole objective in mind of eliminating any rote learning elements from the exam, well, what are they going to target exactly? Now, let me be clear, there are no changes scheduled for this year's CLAT, as in the CLAT, the edition that will take place in December of 26, the exam that you will be taking this specific December. These changes are in the air. Let us see how much the consortium accepts them or how much they reject them. So now the proposed structure is there on your screen. And this was pretty much an open secret. This was basically a no-brainer. CLAT already essentially is what they have always tried to make it into. So earlier, till about 2019, the CLAT was an exam that contained around 200 odd MCQs, which had static GK, advanced law, pretty much first semester of law ke questions of the Indian Contract Act, etc., etc. Then it turned into a mini LSAT light, I would say. And now it is going fully in that route. It is going to basically remove all the localization elements. So today, let us discuss. I want you to be the judge as a student, as a parent of a prospective student who's going to be attempting this examination. Because, well, as a parent also, you need to contribute to your child's prep for them to ace any competitive exam in India, and that's the holistic way to go about it. So what essentially, as always with us Indians, is that we try to ape whatever the US and UK do, especially in their education system, which is not a bad thing, not entirely a good thing as well. Now, as a famous legal philosopher said in his book, The Spirit of Laws, is that law is basically created thanks to the land in which it operates. So law needs to be heavily localized, and I believe all systems also be heavily localized. So on one end, it is absolutely great that we are moving towards a skill-based examination and aptitude-based examination. But let us say that if a student knows the first ever private rocket that was launched and first ever hydrogen train, etc., I mean, what is the harm? If the student knows about not a farcical question that they asked about General Dyer, but let us say that the student knows about their civics, economics, political sciences, or a bit of legal studies from 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, what is the harm? Why can't we test them? Now, of course, this is a proposition. So there are always two sides to a coin. There are pros to an argument, there are cons to an argument, and nobody scores 100 on 100 in life. I want your judgment on this because well, I have a pecuniary interest in these examinations, so I can't be free from bias here. However, you can. And since I posted this on Instagram, it went viral, and there were a lot of comments. Some people advocated to keep current affairs. Some people advocated against it. They are keeping the quant section. So now they want three sections. They want one is logical and legal aptitude combined. Then they want language and comprehension. And the third one is that they want basic quants in which they want data extraction from a given passage. So if you remove the current affairs portion and the static GK general awareness portion from the exam so that you eliminate rote learning, because the committee's main aim is to eliminate coaching. And that's a very facile, very shallow understanding of the entire issue by the committee, because, well, their presumption is they're assuming that that the coaching guys basically train the students and they make them rote learn the current affairs. So anyone who goes to coaching has a distinct edge over someone who cannot afford coaching. So we are going to be eliminating this section because you cannot, essentially speaking, kill off coaching completely, which is basically their ultimate aim. However, I doubt whether they'll be able to do it because, well, Well, tutoring is always going to be there. It has always existed. You can't, for example, learn to drive a car. If you can do it on your own, but in the process you will first have to cause about 20 odd accidents and take about 2 years, whereas under an instructor you can learn it in about 1 to 2 odd months. So their presumption is that they basically want to give a very equal samanya ground to everyone attempting the exam. Now, however, deleting the current affairs will make them introduce more critical reasoning based questions. And what are critical reasoning based questions? There are questions on assumptions, there are questions on premises, the conclusion, then there are the questions on strengthening the conclusion, weakening the conclusion, drawing the conclusion. As it is, this examination is going to be metamorphosed into cattle, as I call it. Basically, the L is going to go on the other side, cat light it will become. You might just end up putting, so this is for the committee, you might just end up putting a lot of folks from underprivileged backgrounds and from, let us say, people who are not from the mainland of India with not very good fundamentals in English. You have already by design eliminated them by giving the other kids who are proficient in English via their schooling, by designing the paper in such a manner. And now you are all set to take another advantage away from these children who do not have a very solid background in English because, well, thanks to the infrastructure that was there in their schooling, basically. So now critical reasoning is not exactly a very easy topic to tackle. These assumption questions, these, if you see the AILET, NLU Delhi's examination paper, and when you see it, those questions are tough. For a child who is 17 to 18 years of age, they may just not be tough for adults, but it is a tough thing for the children to tackle because it requires thinking in English. So now when you introduce more of that element and you purely go SAT, LSAT, LNAT style in these examinations, it might just defeat the very aim or the purpose that you're trying to fulfill via this proposed change. Now, I do not know how much the consortium accepts it, but it's pretty much a given that they are going to accept it because, well, once in a while these committees show up every 5 years. And as it is, last time the CLAT's format was changed in 2020 by Professor Faizan Mustafa. I very clearly remember those days because I used to teach for the CLAT back then before returning back to it this year. So it was 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 and now 26. So 6 to 7 odd years, basically around 6 editions of the CLAT have taken place since that very event, around 5 to 6, whatever the number may be. And usually any competitive exam undergoes a change every 5 years, well, because everybody figures out the pattern and then there's a coaching infrastructure that develops around the pattern and the examiner wants to break everything apart. This is a standard tactic. However, if you're going to be taking the CLAT exam this year, because they have notified in the report, etc., because that the consortium, the paper setters are going to work in consultation with the committee. So the question paper quality may just slightly improve, but otherwise, whatever happens in our country, we already know about it. Yeah, so that's that. Here, introducing more critical reasoning elements might just defeat the very objective of this change is one argument. Now, of course, see, I am not making these arguments, I'm just listing them out, and I'm doing this without any script or without over analyzing the report. Of course, I've gone through the report, etc. I pretty much knew, in fact. To tell you very honestly, it's not exactly a very, oh my God, I said it before. I said it earlier than anyone else. It was pretty much a given. You could deduce this based on common sense. When the committee's sole objective is to remove any rote learning elements, well, what is there to rote learn in the exam right now is only current affairs and GK, and they want that gone as well. To fulfill that gap, now questions to badhane padenge. So to fulfill that gap, you will introduce more critical reasoning elements than the ones that are already there. So now basically this paper is going to be critical reasoning, analytical reasoning, English reading and comprehension, a good amount of vocab and some data extraction. That's about it. So the counter argument is, why can't we ask a bit of political studies? Why can't we ask a bit of civics or social studies? Law essentially is a humanities based field in which there's a lot of human interaction, and we are trying to study as to how do we basically give the human beings a framework in which they can live in an orderly, civilized manner. And what happens when a dispute arises? How do we mitigate it via courts? That is essentially speaking what majority of law essentially speaking is. So why can't, what is the problem if the child has studied a bit of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha? In legal studies, they are studying about, let us say, IPR in class 12th. What is the problem if we ask them that? Because if we make this paper completely open-ended, we make this examination absolutely completely open-ended, it throws the door open to pretty much, well, law is for everyone and anyone can attempt it. Great argument. But what of those who truly wish to pursue law? But what is the harm in asking 9th standard, 10th standard, up to 10th standard, let us say, forget 11, 12, then the streams change. What is the harm in asking basic eco, basic stuff from there? I mean, why not? They have already studied it. If it shows their aptitude, now they want to check about legal aptitude. How do you check legal aptitude without involving a bit of law? Like, how exactly do you do it? Then you can perhaps skip asking very petty current affairs, the ones that these guys usually go into unnecessary waters. Like for example, SCO. How many members are there in the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? This was I think a question from last year. I mean, forget about it. Instead, but why shouldn't a student not know, especially in a country as diverse as India? Why should the student not know about what is happening or the prominent current affairs from within India, let us, instead of asking where Modi ji has been roaming around abroad in terms of his foreign policy? Why not, let us say, ask about the Supreme Court? Not the judgments, of course, but let us say what is the present bench strength, because recently it was increased. What is the harm in asking that? If the child is up to date with legal current affairs, they will not perhaps treat this seat as purely a backup to any other exam that they might just be taking, and just attempting this, and well, just do the degree for the sake of for pursuing the degree. And then they'll complain, oh my god, we created the NLUs to create better litigators and everyone just enters corporate law. Well, congratulations to you, my friend. Have you not understood that this is your design? Just look at the fee. Just look at you creating the pursuit of this degree into only a mere backup option for a lot of people. That can be one argument as well. So what happens when you eliminate current affairs? So if you're preparing for CLAT for next December's cycle, and well, first and foremost, I want that cycle to be changed. As to why are you keeping bang it in basically, why are you keeping it in the bang of the school year? You should shift it out to May, when CUET, UG, etc. all examinations are there, so that the child is mentally free. They can just first focus on their 12th grade, a mark sheet that will remain with them for life, and then perhaps get them over to attempting the exam like it used to be until about, I think this was changed in 22 23, like it used to be. There was no problem with that whatsoever. They fixed something that was not even broken to begin with. Yeah. So coming back is, if you're preparing for next year's CLAT, not this one, not 26, but the next one's 27, you might just need to now prepare for critical reasoning skills and develop them through the roof. your ability to crack a critical reasoning question should be through the roof, because you're going to be meeting a lot of these assumptions, strengthening the conclusion, weakening the conclusion, drawing the conclusion. Which of the following the author will agree with, will disagree with, which of the following will weaken the conclusion, except, stuff such as that. And start working there, and start primarily thinking in English based on reading in English. You will need to start thinking in English. Otherwise, exam mein wahi hoga, inky minky ponky, and then, Jai Shri Ram, Hallelujah, and option number C mark karna padega in some of these questions. Because this examination is going to transmute itself into, essentially speaking, a test of English. Pretty much. It already is. It already is. It isn't a surprise that it already is. But now more so, it may just turn itself into that. Because the feedback form is right now open till about 31st of August. But whatever decisions they usually have to they usually take. And then they will not even release what they are up to till next year, the March to June wala time frame, and again announce the exam. So yeah, but perhaps they will need to announce it a little early next year, about January, February, as to that the pattern has changed, so that children actually do not end up preparing for current affairs needlessly. However, it's pretty much a certainty, at least in my mind, 90% of the time. However, you will have to prepare current affairs and static GK for MHCT, the 5-year law program. For CUT, I believe, yours is CUT, I was about to say PG. Can't forget that. You will most likely have to prepare it for AILET as well, but usually AILET follows in CLAT's footsteps. I hope so, that at least they have some, they want to chart their own course, and they might just want to basically keep their own format. But I believe it is up to them. We can't really say, as it is people such as us, if we basically make a suggestion, then, well, we any which way, coaching, quote unquote. But any which way, I won't go into those waters. Been there, done that already. So yeah. So if you're preparing for CLAT for next year, get ready. Start working on your critical reasoning skills. Be a champion in assumptions, conclusions, strengthening, weakening, etc. But do prepare static GK, because general awareness, generally speaking, helps you out a lot in every exam that you take in this country, even for UPSC later on, if that is your aim, or the judicial services. If basically, sarkari naukri overall is your aim, then you please prepare that, and you do not ignore current affairs, because it's a habit. And it's a compulsion that you develop your critical reasoning skills and you start thinking in English. You practice as much as possible. You can also refer to a couple of lectures that are out there on this channel. For this year's exam, you need not worry. You stick to the same formula wherever you are enrolled. You stick to the pedagogy, the structure, the methodology, or if you're preparing on your own, well, then you need to stick to the formula that you have already worked on, and now we are basically 3 to 4 months away from the exam. And well, you expect a slightly better paper this year in terms of errors, in the sense that there will be less errors. I believe there will be less dicey, objectionable questions, but this is, I can forever trust them to make blunders upon blunders. That's just how the overall system is. And hopefully it all improves, especially now we have seen what the protest has done. So education is now in the spotlight. So I do not believe that they will give an inch in terms of, a margin of error, especially this year, so that the spotlight, well, comes here. And yeah, that's about it. So before I make this into an endless repeating conversation, you please need not worry, and take your exam for this year. No changes for you. For next year, already, whether they accept the recommendation or whether they do not accept the recommendation, you start thinking in English, you start conversing in English, you start critically reasoning in English, and you make, or you train yourself. Everything is trainable. You can become remarkably better at anything if you work at it. then you make yourself very good at critical reasoning if you're targeting this exam in next year of basically December of 27. I always get confused with these years. Anyway, wishing you folks all the very best. May God bless you. And may you ace your 11th and 12th standard examinations. We are going to be covering out political science, legal studies, eco on this very channel very, very soon. This year my target is to complete political science and legal studies. So if that interests you, you can explore the playlist. You can also explore the playlist for CLAT current affairs. And that will cover out a lot many things for you. Wishing you folks all the very best. May God bless you. Bye.